What if, with just the press of a button, you could make a bad person disappear from thousands of miles away without any collateral damage? This is the direction in which the reality of drone warfare is trending. Military drones are a lot like our fighter jets or bombers, except for the fact that they are unmanned. Drones, also known as unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs, are beginning to be used more and more in armed conflicts because they provide a key advantage over the enemy: the ability to fight without human allies actually being present and thus susceptible to casualties. However, drone warfare in some cases may almost be thought of as cheating on the world stage, calling into question its ethics. But so long as the objective ultimately remains the preservation of life, using them is not just a right, but a necessity. The first priority of the United States military is to preserve the lives of U.S. citizens, but as technology continues to progress, our brave soldiers should be afforded that same consideration. The advent of drones brings with it the potential for essentially risk-free attacks. With drones, we do not actually have to send people to where the conflict is anymore. This is because satellites allow for remote strikes on almost anywhere across the globe from either a nearby Allied territory or even from right here in the US. Contrary to what it may sound like, however, operating a drone is no easy task, and it certainly involves more than just swiveling around a joystick in front of a monitor. When all is said and done, it takes roughly 180 people to operate a single drone effectively from conception to strike, taking into consideration the engineering and manufacturing that is required to create the drone, the legal process that is required to ensure that the strike itself is approved, the chain of command that must then be followed on the military side, and then finally, the team concerned with ensuring that the strike is clean, effective, and that no last-minute problems arise. Be that all as it may, any amount of work that goes into drone warfare is worth it if it means the preservation of the lives of good men and women who would otherwise be laying down their lives. In comparison to traditional military aircraft, drones are overall much more efficient. For one, in addition to keeping the lives of U.S. citizens out of the equation, utilizing unmanned vessels provides the key advantage of being able to stay in the air for much longer periods of time. This is because control of the drone can pass from person to person or team to team on a shift schedule, allowing for people to take care of necessities such as eating and sleeping, all while not having to pause the mission. Another huge benefit of drones is their capacity for achieving a reduction and nearly an elimination of collateral damage. As time moves along, drone operators will be able to work with increasingly high-powered cameras and sensors, which will allow them to not only pinpoint their target more efficiently, but also be more confident in their ability to avoid civilians. Furthermore, contrary to a large-scale ground assault or bombing raid, a drone strike can be called off completely at the last possible second if there is even a sliver of doubt over whether or not civilians may be affected. Finally, drones really are scary pieces of technology, and the fear factor alone could possibly discourage aggressive actions by hostile forces at the onset, creating efficiency by avoiding confrontation in the first place. This is a very prominent idea brought up in The Art of War by Sun Tzu. The ancient Chinese military strategist and philosopher made it a point of emphasis in his discussion on attacking by stratagem that the best war is one that does not have to be fought. In other words, if one power is able to convince the other that they stand no realistic chance in winning, there is a good chance that they will lay down their arms, leading to no unnecessary bloodshed. Similarly, in today's society, if hostile forces become and stay afraid of our advanced military technology, they just might choose to cooperate. When all is said and done, Drones make our battles quicker and easier to conduct, saving lives on both sides of the conflict. Despite the slew of benefits to Americans that drones provide, some may call into question the ethics of this breed of warfare, especially when used against populations who technologically cannot reciprocate. For example, it was estimated back in 2013 that over the next decade, the Pentagon plans to spend $40 billion on medium to large sized drones. To put that number into perspective, South Korea, the 10th highest military spender in the world today, spends approximately $42 billion on their entire military. Along other lines, Peter Lee writes in the Air and Space Power Review that the biggest ethical problem with drones is that it makes killing too easy. Essentially, what he is getting at is that it is much easier to morally justify taking out a dot on a screen versus facing someone down in real life. It is indeed a slippery slope, but be this all as it may, we the United States have a responsibility as a world superpower to strive to maintain universal basic human rights, whatever it takes. Especially in such cases where the human rights of any population across the globe are threatened, the use of drones, or really any means necessary, can be justified by the philosophical views of Rawls. Rawls believed in a divide between well-ordered and not well-ordered populations, and that it was the responsibility of the well-ordered populations to look after the not well-ordered populations, making sure that they were not committing atrocities of this or that order. Rawls took a particularly strong stance on the importance of maintaining basic human rights, going as far as to say that the endangerment of human rights doesn't just permit, but insists upon, war. With that in mind, the use of drones can ultimately be justified so long as our efforts continue to be focused on helping people. Human life is precious beyond anything else in this world. Therefore, we need to take advantage of everything we can in order to preserve it. Using a drone does require a more extensive team than a pilot driving an aircraft, but that extra labor comes with the benefit of no longer having to put US soldiers in the line of fire. Also, in a conflict where the enemy knows that they can't actually kill or even harm us, they might think to just surrender and allow for there to be peace, thus eliminating the need for anyone to be killed at all. Some may argue that it is in bad taste for the US to use such swift, lethal force against people, especially those who not only can't match our technology but can't even defend themselves against it. But the fact of the matter is that we only use lethal force if made absolutely necessary by the enemy. At the end of the day, life is something that is always worth fighting for, and we shouldn't sell ourselves short doing everything we can to support that cause.